I've got my jumper.
Hey, Lawrence, we're back. Haven't talked to you in a while. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm doing fine, Laurie. I've had a nice little holiday and tidied the house up a bit. My dog's been out for a nice walk and he's having a little snooze over there. So
Good. Awesome.
It's all, the weather's nicer, so yeah, I've been keeping in touch with all the flat Earth drama. I mean, it's
a never-ending drama, the docudrama of flat Earth.
You know, I mean, where would you start? You know, you've got tranny gates, you've got rockets going that look like the ones off a fairground, that they're not real. You know, and I looked at Greenland, and I mean, that's the biggest thing I've seen so far, and it's not even really. So you think, you know, is this a dodgy subject to start looking at? But when you look at Greenland, my God, that place is very inhospitable. So if you want to go to Greenland for your holidays, you know, the cost of a flight is at least 10 times a similar flight, say, to somewhere in Europe. So if you fly 2,000 miles from Copenhagen to Greenland, it cost you over, in dollars, cost you about, I don't know, $1,500. But if I go for the same flight down to the Canary Islands, south, I can get it for under $100. So there's a huge difference. And then when you get there, you have a look at some of the hotel guides and the travel reports, you know, where people report on what the accommodation was like. And they're paying 5-star prices for nothing more than a hostel. I mean, most of the hotels over there, let's say it was a 15-bedroom hotel, they share a bathroom, and one person put in the comment that their toilet was nothing more than a bucket. The food's absolutely awful. Everybody says the food's terrible. And then when you look at some of the marketing for it, the marketing is all very negative, so you'd never want to go there, particularly on the food. There was this National Geographic guy put a program out about how they were eating all this seal meat and, you know, the Inuits, what they were eating, and on the plate, and it just looked absolutely disgusting to see. You know, it's very off-putting, and, you know, certainly if you were thinking about going there for a holiday, you'd think, well, you know, the food's terrible. And if you wanted to go to a certain part of Greenland, get this. I was looking at the flights, and if you're going from Copenhagen to, I can't pronounce the name of the place, somewhere on the west side, it's 4 hours there. Do you know how long it takes for the flight to get back? 35 hours for a couple of thousand miles. 35 hours for a 2,000-mile flight, and that's because it takes you all around the edge of Greenland. And then you look at Greenland itself. Well, supposedly the same size as Australia. So a huge continent, and obviously when you go on Google Earth, you can't see anything in the middle. It's just a complete whiteout. But then you go around the edges, and you've got these little pockets, these little communities, and but they're not joined up to each other. There's nowhere else on Earth where one town you can't drive your car along a road or even a track to the other. They're totally, completely isolated. So if you want to go somewhere else in Greenland, you're either on a boat, plane, or a helicopter. So when you're there, they don't want you to move. And then you look, the suicide rate in Greenland, 10 times the world average. That's pretty high. So I've had some thoughts about, you know, are these figures being, you know, shown as the cause of death as being something else, but definitely something going on there. So then I start.
Well, so hold on. I have heard quite a few of these things about Greenland. And, you know, that there are no surface roads much between point A and point B. That's not the way they travel, and among all those other things. So, what do you suppose is the discrepancy between what they are saying is the distance between places and these flight times?
Oh no! No, the flights did. I don't know. I think they put the flights so long coming back to, you know. So if you're going for a week's holiday, you're going to waste 2 days of it to get there and back. So
you think you think they're lying? Is that what you're saying?
Oh, I think it's a deterrent to stop people going. They just don't want anybody going there. And the reason I think they don't want anybody going there, and it's only a theory, is that in the middle there is, there is
nothingness,
an exit out of Earth, or a whole world, a continent or something that isn't a sheet of ice. So if you, for example, you look at the map, you've heard of Ellesmere Island, which is north of Canada, one of the biggest islands in the world. That's got people living on it, which is north of Greenland. So you think, oh, but you can't live in Greenland in the middle or towards the north because it's just a complete ice sheet. Well, it's nonsense.
Well, how can the temperature or the temperate zone be that much different there than it is someplace else on the same latitude?
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. So Ellesmere Island's north of it. So, going off latitude, it should be less hospitable there. There's not many people living on it. I think there's about 180 people. But, the middle of, there's nothing in the middle of Greenland. It's a complete whiteout. There's nothing there. So let's turn the clock back, because I'm thinking about all this business about, timelines and the Dark Ages and, with no recorded history. Yet there's plenty of history before the Dark Ages, but nothing during the Dark Ages. So you look at the Romans. So the Romans came to Britain, allegedly, 2,000 years ago, and they built thousands of miles of roads, many of which are the basis of the roads that we have today. They were fabulous road builders. And I researched it, and in Europe, they built 150,000 miles of roads, which for 2,000 years ago is bloody lot. I mean, it would take them forever now. And then you look in Britain, you've got Hadrian's Wall, goes all the way across Scotland, to blocks off England. So the Romans built that for some strange reason. Now, obviously, they'd say it was to keep the invaders out, or maybe it was to stop people going north towards Greenland. And then you look at there was this causeway that went from Scotland over to Norway. And allegedly the oceans rose and covered it all up, but legend has it that the Romans dismantled it, so that I think it was called Doggerland, and it was a causeway. You could travel from Scotland to Norway across this causeway. No longer there, but all the debris for it is off the coast of Norway. It's the biggest landslide in history on Earth, and obviously, where would you get such a big landslide off Norway? So I reckon it's all this stuff they've used great resources to dig it all out as an escape route. And it's like the Dew line, defense early warning, the so-called Cold War, which we know is a hoax. There is no Cold War between America and Russia, but it's still going on, and they're still patrolling all this area, which just happens to have Greenland in the middle. And of course, in the old days, the defense early warning system would have been the Mounties, in the north of Canada, to stop people going up that way. And obviously, they wear the same red uniforms. And then you look at the flags. You look at Switzerland's flag and the English flag and the Red Cross flag. And you look at the flag of the, were those knights going back to...
Templars.
The Knights Templars, same flag. There's lots of them. Then you've got the Turkish flag and the red and white flags, the Canadian flag, Greenland's flag. They're all red and white, and so there's some connection there. And even if you look at what is your perception of what's that place? Sicily. That's supposed to be a mafia place, isn't it? And it's got this three-legged thing in the middle, and there's also one off the Isle of Man. So there's a big connection between all these things linking them together. So I was reading this Greenland theory, and what it's saying is that the Romans faked their own demise because they discovered Greenland, and they were going to control the world from there. So fuck the Illuminati. It's not the Illuminati that's controlling the world. The Illuminati are the agents of the Roman Empire, which is still running strong up in Greenland, where you can't go in. There's no travel, there's no roads. You'd have to travel on foot if you could get there. CERN, well, we did CERN on an earlier program, and it was like the NASA joke with the tin foil around the around
bunches of wires,
the landing modules and the
right,
big space telescope. You know, we know it's just a mock-up. And CERN was just the same as that. It's just a tube like a tube line with a bit of crinkly foil over it. And then what they're saying is thousands of people work there, and it's a cover for the true headquarters of the CIA. The Red Cross are allegedly spies, world spies, to report on troubled zones. You know, and obviously they carry the same cross. It's the same flag as of the Holy Roman War Emperor, which is this red cross on a white background. So all this stuff ties in. You know, Greenland's a place that it's very expensive to go. Once you get there, you're not going to have a nice time. The food's terrible. You can't travel anywhere. You're stuck in. You know, you'll go to a location. That's it. You know, you can't hire a car and go anywhere else. There's no fucking roads. So, you know, they're obviously covering something up there. And the fact that Google don't let you go and have a look at anything other than these little tiny coastal resorts, and then it, you know, fades to grey or CGI. If you know, once you start moving, you've zoomed in and you move across, just moves to some, you know, blocked out CGI stuff, which isn't anything.
Well, so do you think? Oops, feedback.
So okay. I think the Greenland is
hold on for a second. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, so we've got all this focus on the South Pole, which is ostensibly in the completely opposite direction. Everybody wants to go down to the South Pole, which is maybe to sidetrack people from where maybe they should be looking. Is at Greenland, because you can go to Greenland. You can't go to the North. You can't go to South Pole, but you can go to Greenland. But whether you'd be brave enough to go there and start exploring is another matter, because when you look at the suicide rate, you start thinking, were these suicides people who strayed outside the permitted zone, unofficially written permitted zone? Once you venture outside it, I mean, allegedly there's a great big wall. The Romans loved building walls around things. They built a huge wall around London, one around Chester, one around York. They've probably built a frigging great big wall against wherever they are in Greenland, if they are indeed in there, and they don't want anybody there. I mean, Canada's spending hundreds of billions of pounds a year on this strategic air defence in that neck of the woods for Canada, which isn't, you know, an immensely wealthy country, is it? It's a huge budget. So there's definitely something going on there. What merits further investigation into it, but I don't think anybody's going to be brave enough to go there to go and have a look, because and that Aaron Dover, I don't know whether that guy's real or what. His obituary had got one name, but he had a different name when somebody was writing about him. But one of the last videos he put out was about Greenland. He put a video about Greenland, or more than one, and a month later, or less than a month later, 3 weeks later, the guy's dead. And then you got, what's his name? You've heard of Jungle Surfer. He started putting videos about Greenland, but Jungle Surfer puts some good stuff out, but he mixes it with crap. You know, like certain people, which are obviously men or women, and they're like he's saying Princess Di was a bloke. I do find that hard to believe. So maybe that's some kind of deliberate. You know, it's okay for Jungle Surfer to say, because nobody's going to take him seriously. But you know, I think it's not been explored, Greenland, has it? All the other cultures, you know, there's probably more people in the Antarctic research station than there is in frigging Greenland. You know, a population of 50,000. I mean, you get more than that in a little town in the whole of the UK, or a town in a state in the United States. 50,000 is nothing, is it? But it's a huge landmass, but nobody lives there. Nobody wants to go there. And when you watch all the programs about it, they're very depressing. You know, to give you the impression, well, I just don't get a good feel about that place. I don't want to go. And you have to be quite wealthy to go there anyway, because of the cost of the accommodation. Apparently, the hotels there are 5-star Tokyo prices. Really expensive, you know.
Well, do you have earbuds, by the way, so we don't have feedback coming from you?
I'm on full volume. I'll turn it down.
Thank you.
I was listening to you in your last hangout with that.
You certainly don't need me at full volume.
Yeah,
I think I'll talk pretty loud. But anyway, okay, so you mentioned my first thought, and that is, you know, since I became a flat earther and started investigating all this flat earth stuff, obviously one of the first things you hear about is all the stuff about you can't go to Antarctica and the Antarctica Treaty, and you can't cross Antarctica, and Richard Byrd's stories about how big it is, and focus on Antarctica. And nobody hardly ever talks about the North, even though it is supposed to be the focus of the AE model. Is everything centers around the North and Mount Meru and all that. So I don't know if there's actually much difference between North and South insofar as the way that they work on a map or a model or whatever. But when you did tell me that you had been doing the research on Greenland and this connection to the Roman Empire, it's pretty obvious that the Romans went in that direction. History says so. There's enough left behind to show that they did, like you said, the roads and the walls and did they make any aqueducts? Because they were huge on making those big giant aqueducts all through Europe leading down to Italy. But it has been said that, of course, Hitler had a lot of focus on the North Pole or the top, whatever. And so there's an awful lot of interest there, both militarily, strategically, and so on, with very few people living there. Throughout modern history anyway. The Vikings and all that stories that they used to talk about. I've watched enough movies about how the Vikings came down to UK and Scotland and Ireland and, pillaged and plundered. So I don't know, it's definitely something that's been pretty ignored in flat earth research is the far north and Greenland. I remember a year or so, maybe even close to 2 years ago, when I can't remember her name, but the one woman that was the big mathematician type and made all those charts and everything and said there was no Greenland and there was no Australia. Remember her?
Oh, you mean Gypsy Girl?
Gypsy Girl, there we go. She was just positive that there was no such place as Greenland, that it actually didn't exist. So what does that mean? Do we look at Greenland's coastline much the way we look at Antarctica's coastline, meaning most of all the military bases, the experiments and testing and all of that stuff in Antarctica is pretty close to the coastline. So we just don't hear about Greenland much ever, which is curious in and of itself.
Yeah, I mean, that is a possibility, because once you get there, that's it. You could be on just a small pocket of land that could be some offshore island off Canada or somewhere. And you can't go anywhere. So how would you verify that you're actually there anyway?
Well, the only way you would be, coordinates. But every time I hear stories like this, it makes me think of Atlas Shrugged, where, those important people, the wealthy and the knowledgeable, all chucked out of their own society and took off and went to that place where you had to get there by plane, and it was in the mountains out west somewhere, like Colorado or whatever, and they had some kind of like a shield over it where you couldn't see it if you flew over, unless you had certain technology that you knew where it was and drop in, and they all lived there in quiet and solitude, and the unclean masses were protected from them. So I always think of that kind of storyline where the elites or whoever they are have found a place that's so off the radar that nobody knows it's there. And of course, if you truly want to protect it from the masses, it's the best way to do that is never to speak of it in the first place. The fewer people know about it, the easier it is to keep the secret. And perhaps you have to pass some kind of test to even be allowed to be there, go there, see it. So I don't know, but it's certainly worth thinking about and pursuing for sure. I mean, we know that Australia exists. That's just crazy talk for anybody to say Australia doesn't exist. I mean, there are enough people living there. Just because there's not that many living in the interior, that doesn't mean it doesn't exist. You can measure the coastline. You can measure the length and width of it. It does show up on maps. People fly there all the time. It is real, but Greenland is a different subject because, like you said, you just investigated it and you found that you everywhere you go, you got to fly there.
Yeah, well, legend has it
or take a boat.
Legend has it that the Romans found Greenland and they bred with the natives there, which were giants, and the resulting offspring had green eyes and red hair, which is where the term "the look of the Irish" comes in. And if you'd have said that to me a few months ago, the look of the Irish, that would be saying, oh, they're lucky at playing a game of cards. But it is the physical look, red hair, which, because my mother's, from Irish descent, she's got red hair and that type of eye colouring, as had my granddad. So the red hair and the green eyes sort of stuff is, typical of a lot of the Irish people. So the look of the Irish is what they actually look like.
Right. And according to, what we all sort of grew up learning was that red hair was a recessive gene and that, it is hereditary, but at the same time, you can go several generations without a redhead and then suddenly a redhead, green-eyed child will show up. That's what I was taught anyway. But
yeah, but I mean, look at the Roman Empire.
When you crossbreed different colors and types of people, I mean, I'm not going to use the word race because we're all the human race, but we do have different species, subspecies of the human race, or whatever you want to call it. So
yeah, but when you look at the Roman Empire,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
You look at the Roman Empire, I haven't looked at it in any depth, but they were never militarily defeated. I mean, they built 150,000 miles of roads within Europe. So effectively, they'd conquered Europe, and they worked with great precision and built fabulous. I mean, you see the thickness of the wall. I've got to Chester. The walls are like 10 meters thick. These walls that go all the way around the city. These people were, they worked with precision, and their roads. They've got the straightest roads ever. When you run a Roman road. So to think that, so if they were that good at building roads, they were probably very good militarily. They were never militarily defeated.
What was the reason you heard the Roman I never heard the words defeat of the Roman Empire, but I have heard, the demise of the Roman Empire. What was the reason you always heard why the Roman Empire failed after X hundred years?
Till recently. Then you read on it now and it says, oh, it was the barbarians coming over the borders.
Well, that's what I heard, like the Huns or the Goths or whatever they called them.
Yeah, but the Romans would have had the best of everything, wouldn't they?
And that they were lazy, and that they, their morals had declined to the point of easily defeated.
Yeah, let me just read this out to you. I'm still here. Just bear with me a second, because it's interesting.
But it is one of the, sort of mysterious. We all learned about the Roman Empire growing up in school, but then sort of like, okay, now then the Roman Empire is over, and that's that. And then the Dark Ages happened. So
Yeah,
most of us didn't question.
The Romans stuff is, if you look at all the architecture now, it's still with us everywhere. You know, it still shows in every country you go. It's full of, you know, the architecture's there. So let me just dig this up.
Have you ever looked at a map of the so-called extent, the farthest stretch that the Roman Empire took? It's a massive amount of land.
Let me read this out, because I found this quite taking. So it won't take me long to read this out. So the time period commonly referred to as the Dark Ages was literally and figuratively dark because it never existed in reality. The reason being that after the alleged fall of the Roman Empire, a total of 1,300 years were added to the modern Gregorian calendar, representing the 13 bloodlines of Rome. This was done in order to hide Rome's secret move to Greenland by deceiving the world into thinking the Roman Empire was far older than it actually was, making the likelihood of its demise seem all the more plausible. Once in Greenland, the Roman Empire used Roman Britain, i.e. Britannia, and the subsequent British Empire to whitewash their military presence around the world. So Britain did rule the world. If you look to the flags, the British Empire was everywhere. So by speaking the same language of English and wearing the same military uniforms, i.e. redcoats, the Roman Empire was effectively able to hide their empire. This notion is evident in the war flag of the Holy Roman Empire, which features exactly the same design and colour as the flag of England. Now, this bit is quite taking. You've heard about the Inquisition. Well, apparently the Inquisition was an intelligence operation executed by the Roman Empire's Catholic Church to combat heresy. Another word for heresy is hearsay about the New World, i.e. Greenland and the Roman Empire. The Inquisition occurred just prior to the alleged Dark Ages, so that the Roman Empire could effectively disappear into ancient history, along with the island of Greenland. Alleged to have started in France during the 12th century, the medieval Inquisition persisted into the 14th century with its geographic scope, including Africa, Asia, Europe, as well as the Spanish and Portuguese empires in the Americas. The goal of the Inquisition was to find out and root out all academics, intellectuals, and sailors who had first or second-hand knowledge of the city of Atlantis, the island of Greenland, Earth's second moon, and the true history of the Roman Empire. Consequently, all those who posed a threat to the hoax of the Dark Ages were interrogated, tortured, or executed. So there you have it.
Well, you know, I've always sort of questioned history, especially back past a certain point. You know, this word prehistoric has always been bandied around, where, you know, it's like, when exactly was prehistoric and when did it begin? You know, and of course, then you've always heard that history is written by the victor and so on. So if the Roman Empire just sort of fell and just was no longer, the Dark Ages, I was always taught, was the period post-Roman Empire, where there was no organization, no leadership. Those Huns or Goths or whoever the heck they were, that were a party to the fall of the Roman Empire, were, you know, no rules, no nothing. And so that's why there was no history being kept at that point. And so it only makes sense that that could easily be a time when the history book writers change their tact of what they're writing about and what they're reporting. Because I mean, history is and can be different for everybody, because there's different places all over the world that have different viewpoints of the same history.
Let me give you one reason why I think the timelines have been messed about with, because this doesn't add up for me. So let's say, for example, Laurie, I'm going to stick you on a boat and I'm sending you out to a desert island, uninhabited, and you're on your own. I'll give you a tent and some food and a few bits and pieces so you can, you're going to stay there for 1 week. You're there for a week, and your mission is, by the end of the week, is to make for me a candle. Yeah, a candle that I can light. Yeah, and you've got to do it with whatever you can from there. You would probably struggle to do that, wouldn't you? Anybody would. Mm-hmm. So, people say, well, yeah, humans are so much smarter now than they were in the past, but we're not. We've got all this technology, but we haven't got a clue how it works. We just have it because it's been given to us. So we've had, since the 1800s, we've had this industrialization of Earth, where we've gone from horses and carts to steam engines to jet planes, all in the space of 100 years. And yet, for the previous 2,000 years, it was
little or nothing. Horse and buggies, and
the development would have been there. We would have got to where we are now, 1,500 years ago. By the year 500, we would have had the aeroplanes by then, but we didn't. So why? And the reason I think the reason why is that they've messed around with the timeline, and they've stripped out 1,000 years or so out of our history, which they can't account for anyway. When you look back on English kings, and they go back to about the year 900, but even then, the bits in between could have been fabricated. And then you're talking about legends like King Arthur and Robin Hood and all sorts of people like that, which nobody knows. What is a legend? Did they live? Did they not? And why is it a legend? And then why have you got history of the Bible? All fully documented. There's no dates on the Bible, obviously, but allegedly it's before then. But you've got all that history, and then in the middle, well, everybody was savages all over the entire world, and no records were kept, and there's no history apart from a few. Well,
there's actually missing there's some missing timeline to the Bible too, between the Old and New Testament. So, I don't know. Some people would say, it's not going to do any good to worry about it because you're not going to solve it because, it's a secret, or it's been lost. So if you look at it from two different perspectives, why is it a secret? Because what is the purpose of keeping a secret unless it either benefits the secret keepers or is a detriment to everyone? I can't think of any other reason why you would want to keep a secret. I mean, in real life, if someone tells you a secret, my husband's having an affair or something like that. Okay. And don't tell anyone. Okay. So you have no idea who else they told, first of all, but as with pretty much any secret, once two people know something, it's on the street as far as I'm concerned. When someone tells me something and don't tell, and then you go and talk to someone else and they tell you the same secret. Okay. So that they told that person too. And now you're like, well, why did they tell me not to tell if they went and told this other person? So if you actually want to hold on to a secret, you tell no one. And if you're going to tell someone else, then there has to be a deterrent from telling the secret, like death or, something serious. We're going to kill your entire family, or you're going to wreck it for everyone, is a pretty good deterrent. We have a special little thing going on here. And if you tell anyone that hasn't been approved by everyone else, so I digress, but the whole idea is who's keeping the secret of Greenland, for example. Okay. And why are they keeping it? If it's just to keep everyone else out, private land ownership can do the same thing, right? I mean,
Yeah.
if you have millions of dollars or billions of dollars, then you simply buy the land or take the land, whichever the case may be, if nobody already owns it, and you build security around it. If you have that much money, you can, you can afford your own private army and security. So,
no, they have got their own private army. They've got the US and the Soviet, Air Force.
But that's not really that's not what I would consider a private army, because these are real people who someone would tell someone, family or friend or whatever. Guess what my job is in the military? I'm security on a great big fence with nothing but miles of nothing beyond it, and people come and go, but I have no idea who they are or what they're doing. Someone would tell that. People are just naturally curious, and then they're naturally going to share it with someone.
Yeah, if they were flying close to the edge of wherever this was, but if they're just patrolling, you see, when I looked into it, and you've got the US and the Soviets covering certain parts of the airspace, covers of places around Greenland. There was one part omitted, and it was on the east side of Greenland, and there was no defence for that at all. It was left, so you're thinking, well, maybe they've got their own defence for that little portion of it, because it was broken down. I sent it to you on Facebook, but I haven't got it to hand at the moment, and it broke it down by longitude and latitude as to who was responsible for patrolling the airspace in these areas on this dew line, and this bit here. There was nothing there. It was a blank, so nobody can go there apparently.
Well, okay, let's compare this, like, for example, to someplace like Area 21. You know about Area 21, I'm sure. Okay. It's landlocked. I mean, it's completely surrounded by open land, meaning there is a perimeter that they monitor and protect. It's got cameras and every other kind of thing. And people, warning signs and everything else. Do not come past this point. And I actually think there's some like death threat to that. You can be shot or detained or whatever. So there is a point, where if you're just a normal Joe, you're going to go up to a perimeter of something. You're going to be curious, but you're not going to be so curious that you're going to proceed to go further. And so if this is in Greenland and it's at the top of the world or in a very inhospitable place, perhaps the whole legend thing of Antarctica, they'll shoot you out of the water. They'll, if you try to go there. Other than that story that sort of backs that up about what is it, Jarl Andhoy and the Berserker story about, the the boat being sunk and a couple of hands lost. If they actually came from up in that area, right? Jarl Andhoy, didn't they come from up the north?
Yeah.
So maybe that story, this is the way my mind works. Maybe that story developed up there, but was flipped to Antarctica as a deterrent to all these flat earthers who now think that you can't go there or you'll be blown right out of the water. And you remember that we have done the math on how many military ships would that take to protect that border? They'd have to be within viewing distance of each other apart, so no one could sneak in between them, right?
Yeah.
So I don't know, it's all worth pondering for sure, especially if the joke's on us that the focus that we've had is on Antarctica. God, can't even talk anymore today. Antarctica. And yet where we should be looking is at the opposite. And one of the purposes, I believe, for the false model being put into the flat earth community is with the North in the center. That's unless you believe in that, what is that hollow earth theory where there's a hole there, that's a landlocked location. I mean, you know, when something's in the center of something versus on the perimeter of something, I mean, you can't add anything to the center of the bullseye.
Yeah,
right?
the question it really asks is that if there is something in Greenland, maybe it's just a paradise that's so beautiful that they want to keep it all for themselves. But then you've got places like Hawaii, but maybe that's not big enough for the Roman Empire to live in. But maybe there's something else there. Maybe there's an exit point in Greenland where you can actually get out of this earth, because if it was just such a beautiful place, then you could keep people out anyway. You could just, you know,
right.
It
you just protect the perimeter.
If you've got enough money, they'd let you go. But it doesn't matter how much money you've got now. You ain't going to go there. Nobody's going to go there. So,
well, you know, there's a lot of people that have sort of a misconception about, you know, those with a lot of money are like a club or a clique. And that cannot be true, because in every socioeconomic group, be they poor or be they filthy rich, there's assholes, right?
Yeah.
And just because someone has a ton of money and can buy their way in to this private club, there's always a committee of people who go, we don't want that asshole in here. I don't care how rich they are, right?
Yeah.
So that's not necessarily the criteria of just having money. I think more importantly, one of the things that we can all agree on that has been protected over time are what we call bloodlines. Family. Yeah. Family always rules, you know, rules in the end over everything else. So,
yeah. Well, Laurie, can we just change the subject for a minute now, because before I forget this one.
Okay.
All right. So we were talking about this briefly yesterday, and I've come to the conclusion that all of these 18th century, late 1800s books, which have all suddenly come out of nowhere that nobody had heard of before, the whole lot has been fabricated and masqueraded as reprints of old books. Mm-hmm. And I haven't read all of them from cover to cover, but I have looked at them all, and they all have the common theme of having the same model as like what Eric Dubé's got, with the, you know, the ice wall and the North Pole in the center, and lines of latitude getting ever increasing circles as you move out and being much bigger than what it is in reality, and a sun going around in a circle. They've all got that in common, and all allegedly written in the 1800s by people where there's no other history about them other than people, you know, reporting back to each other saying this was, you summed it up well. I can't remember the words that you used, if you can remember them, but they're sort of you know, giving themselves positive feedback that this is correct. So what you've got all these books, in my opinion, that have all been fabricated, and the same storyline, the same narrative is now been adopted by all the prominent flat earthers with this. I know we weren't going to talk about models, but they've all got this same model. They all have a few arguments about some of the minor details of it, but in principle, it's all the same, with a North Pole in the center, an ice wall on the outside, and the sun going round and round, you know, and star trails are really going round. They've all adopted the same one, because that was what was the narrative from the days of Sargent and Dubai, when they kicked it all off. So I think all these books, I'm going to do some more research on it and cross-reference them all, so we can actually see that they're saying the same thing. And bearing in mind that all of this is provably a nonsense, why would people, you know, people were not stupid in the 1800s. Why would they have all got it so horribly wrong?
Well, first of all, would you pay some attention to Finn there for a second, because he's agitated and he wants a pet. Okay. Second of all, you and I both have, you know, made some pretty good it looks into a whole lot of the idea of some of these old books and the maps, not just the books, but the maps that go along with them. I don't know about you, but I spent my whole life never having seen a Gleason map, never having seen these azimuthal equidistant maps of all kinds and shapes. I've never seen any of these maps that have, an azimuthal, an AE world, and then continents way beyond it, all bunch of them that nobody ever heard of before. But suddenly this map pops out, the minute that flat Earth starts kicking up. So, the books, the maps, and the manuscripts, all, in my opinion, all are interconnected and all are supporting documents for each other.
Yeah, I know. And I think Robotham, you might not necessarily, I think Robotham was fabricated. I want to bring this gravestone up on the screen so the viewers can see what I'm thinking, that Robotham, that gravestone, has been fabricated. It isn't the gravestone of somebody called Samuel Burley Robotham. Let's see if I can bring it up. Got it here somewhere. Where's the screenshot?
Okay. Well, in the meantime, like you said, the book about modern college, we did a half of an episode about that. Right. Modern college was what was listed on the title, and modern college was listed on the Gleason map. Both of these supposedly hit the surface right about the same time. And so one supports the other, and both of them are wrong. Both of them say modern, and both of them are wrong because it's Morden. Yeah. And there is no modern college in Blackheath, England. And so, but people say, oh, it's a typo. When was the last time you saw a typo on a book that's multiple printings of it? Go ahead, show the screen.
Right, so is the screen there now? Is it on screen?
Yeah, but it's not big. But go ahead.
Can you not read?
I can see it. Go ahead, Lawrence.
Well, when you look at this, you can see that the words, these have been doctored on here, because you look at the underlying text on this gravestone, it's virtually worn out. Somebody's gone on there and either etched that in, or, because when you make it even bigger, it looks like it's been photoshopped onto it. I don't know that I've got that on this other screen. Let me just put it on this other screen. Let me open it in Paint and make it bigger, and then you can see, because when I looked at it that way, it was actually looking like it had been just photoshopped on. Here we go. So there you go.
Lawrence, just before you go further, could you hit full screen on your screen share, please? Show full screen.
Okay, sorry. Let's come out of that. Come out of that. Sugar. There you go.
There you go again.
What?
You got me up there.
All right, I'm trying to do. All right, let's try again.
Okay, could you
again. Share? Okay. Oh, my entire screen. Here we go.
Yeah.
Share. Right. Okay. Right. Let's go back to that then. Oh yeah. So here's the great. There's this gravestone. Okay. And you can see that the writing on it is virtually worn out. This stuff has been superimposed on the top. It's so obviously blatant. Anyone can see that. Yeah. You've got the alleged wife of Robotham on there, somebody Elizabeth Robotham, and Samuel Robotham. Here, this has been etched on. It's been doctored. And when you make it bigger, it looks like it's photoshopped to me. Anyway, just a minute. Let's make it bigger. Hang on, 100%. Let's make it bigger. Hang on, that's too big. 500. When you look at that, that looks like photoshopped on there. It's not. That doesn't look like it's carved in the rock. It looks photoshopped. Look.
Well, if it were carved in the rock, whether it's photoshopped or whether it's more recently re-etched into the stone, the letters, the comparison of Samuel Robotham to the word right under it is founded or something like that.
Yeah, but look at this other text.
All the letters look newly etched. The edges are crisp. There's no wear, there's no acid rain, and everything else looks old. So it's highly possible. I don't doubt anything, Lawrence.
These other letters are much smaller, aren't they? These are bigger and bold.
Well, I mean, it's his name and says he died suddenly. That's not the issue. The issue is comparing what looks recently etched or photoshopped over. The letters are all clean. The edges and the corners of the actual etching is, compared to all the other letters and the general wear on the piece of stone, these two things don't go together.
Yeah. All right. Well, I'm glad we agree on that one. So why would they do that? If the guy was real,
well, it's called supporting evidence. When you're going to make a backstory for something. Let's say you're a CIA agent and you're going to go undercover. You just watch a show like Person of Interest on Netflix, and they explain in pretty good detail how they make a backstory or a cover story, or credentials for people who are going to impersonate someone else or going undercover. So they create school documents for you, and a birth certificate and a marriage license, if there's such, and a driver's license and a passport, and on and on and on. And the more in depth they go, the more believable it is for those who are going to check them out, undercover. So it doesn't take a lot of evidence, because humans naturally, if they already think something or want to believe something, they're going to look for evidence to support that, and they're going to ignore evidence that doesn't. So if you're looking for evidence that Samuel Rowbotham existed, then you're going to try to find some history about them. Well, pretty much, except for the internal Flat Earth Society and Zetetic Society type stuff, you don't find anything about this man other than the Wikipedia, entry, for example. And they're all connected. William Carpenter, Christopher Green, or J.S. Green, or whatever his name was, that did the drawing of the Gleason map. And on that is the same typo for Modern College instead of Morden. I mean, these things are all cross connected. So, if I were going to create a story, I would create all this backstory to go with it, and it's the sole reason why you have to question everything. You have to question the information, where the information came from, the credibility. I mean, they do that in a court of law. Okay. People have character witnesses come in and testify for them. And, the cops are always trying, the prosecutor's always trying to enter into evidence, prior crimes, prior arrests, so on. So the more backstory you have, the more credible a story is. So how hard would it be to go find an old cemetery in England and grab an old stone that all of the etching pretty much has been worn off of, and etch some new stuff into it? Or like you say, Photoshop it. But I've seen other photographs than the one you just showed that show the writing to look older. But as an artist and a faux finisher and a faker of things old, I can take acid on a brand new piece of stone and make it looks hundreds of years old in a pretty quick amount of time, if I want to. So it's not a hard thing to do. Is it a conspiracy? Is it a conspiracy worth looking into? Absolutely. A conspiracy is nothing more than a couple of people getting together to conspire to either create do a crime, or to pull off a scam. Okay.
Yeah. And where is that gravestone? I can't find where it is.
Oh, I did find it one time, and I can't remember what it was, but it's in some old cemetery. It's in England.
Right. Well, it'd be worth going and having a look at it, wouldn't it? If somebody's
Yeah, it absolutely would, for you to go there in person, or someone you know. But you know, Google it real quick. Where is Samuel Robotham buried?
I couldn't. I did. I've Googled it. Can't find anything.
Well, then what is this picture of this gravestone? Do the people that are taking the pictures, are they not identifying the location of where they are?
No, no. I mean, that
well,
gravestone,
then that's pretty suspect right there.
That gravestone.
I mean, if you're going to go to and find the gravesite, especially, who else but a flat earther is going to want to go there and take pictures of it, right? Or at least someone investigating.
It was the Flat Earth Society, the one that's, you know, the controlled opposition, the one that was in existence before the emergence of the present wave of flat earthers. They're the ones who published that picture, not the present wave. Yeah, so that rings bells to start with.
Flat Earth Society or the Zetetic Society?
No, the Flat Earth Society, the present day Flat Earth Society that has members, you know, where you get.
All right. Well, let's put the word out. All you people in England who are near a very old, or at least 100, 150-year-old cemetery, that's a pretty darn good sized monument. Go digging around and see, if you walk through these cemeteries, do it in the day. I hate cemeteries at night. And see if you can find a Robotham headstone, or go to your public library and see if you can dig up some information on you know, your local old cemeteries, and see if you can find out who's buried there.
Or the Register of Births and Deaths.
Yeah,
that's worth checking out.
I mean, in the United States, we have the Social Security Death Index. It's called the SSDI, and many people use it to locate, you know, ancestors and stuff like that. So, and do those family tree things.
If it's been digitalized, they may have inserted it and made it up. But you know, if you look at the old handwritten, you know, the Register of Deaths, then I bet you a pound to a penny that there's no Samuel Burley Robotham there anyway. I think he's just been made up.
Well, even if he was a real person and he actually existed, all you have to do is make him larger than life. There's enough stories. I mean, Lady Blount and all these others that kind of were around at the time, William Carpenter later, you know, they could have sort of exaggerated his importance a little bit, or put on him some things that that he supposedly did or said that they actually just wanted it out there. So
all right, well, let me ask you something else now. This is this question has only got two answers to me, and I'll tell you what to me off, because I watch all sorts of stuff on YouTube just to see what they're saying. Not that I believe any of it, because I've already discounted them as being, you know, part of the plan. But that Mr. Thrive and Survive is going down the Pac-Man route now, and what he's saying is that every single flat Earth model requires something supernatural.
Right.
But when you look at the size of the Earth, if I said to you, make me a full-size scale model of the Earth, you would never be able to do it ever. The only to actually physically build it, you'd need to be a giant, many miles tall, hundreds of miles tall probably, to actually physically make, you know, with raw materials to make an Earth like this. So was it giants who did it? The only other option is thought, both of which are supernatural, aren't they?
Mm.
You know,
you mean think it into it? Or wait, hold on. You mean think it into existence, create it into existence with thought?
But yeah, create it, but we see it being real. Well, what other option is there? It was either if it's a physical creation, because Laurie, you and I are both creationists. You know, whether it's intelligent design or somebody called God, we're creationists. This place was created because there's so much, you know, there's so much thing that just everything works perfectly.
It definitely screams creation, right?
So it's created.
Okay, so your question is, given the fact that this is a created Earth, because that would have to be the beginning premise, given the fact that this is a created Earth, you're saying that it had to be, there's only a couple of options as to how it was created. One, by an extraordinarily large God, who could have the capacity to create something this large, or that it was thought into existence or spoken, or some, like that. Okay. And then that is why so many people sort of immediately start leaning toward that whole concept of simulation theory. Are we living in a matrix? Is this a computer generated, reality? So on. So
which do you think
that's pretty hard. That's been pretty hard for me to grasp, because this simulation would have to be so damn good, with blood and guts and smashed rabbits in the road, roadkill, and I mean, all of it so real looking.
Is there any other choice though? Is there any other option? Can you think of another option? Giant thought. It's constructed off giant existence, isn't it? What other option is there?
Well, I mean, I liken it to this, for example. Okay, there's this. Wait. There's this craft or art that people paint pictures on the head of a pin. Have you ever heard of this?
Yeah.
Okay, they literally, we're not talking about making little dollhouses and stuff and miniature furniture. We're talking about painting a discernible picture on the head of a pin with like one brush of a hair and paint. Okay. Compared to the head of the pen, the artist is a giant. Correct?
Yeah.
All right. So that head of the pen is way smaller than it needs to be. I as my size could easily make an Earth and everything in it that would be, bigger than I am. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Okay. In other words, the object that I'm creating does not have to be smaller than I am. It just has to be small enough for me to handle, me to work around with scaffolding. Yeah. And okay.
If you were going to make an Earth, let's say you were going to make a model of Earth, not a ball. Mm-hmm. I can't do the ball, but you're going to make an Earth and whatever the enclosure is, or whatever the
atmosphere and everything. Okay.
You're going to make one, but you're going to need to go and get some materials to make it, aren't you? You're going to need to get some soil and some dirt and some rocks and some water and whatever, and you're going to have to create some little creatures. And they're not going to move. They're just going to be little, statuettes or whatever. You're going to have to get that. But to make something the size of the Earth, all this dirt and rock and soil.
So you're asking, where did the raw materials come from?
Somewhere else, not in Earth.
Right. Where did all the raw materials and the resources come from to make this object?
Or it was
because that's what art is. Art is, you don't create anything with visual art. You can't create anything unless you have raw materials to create it with.
So all right. So which of those two options do you feel lightly?
I've thought it through hundreds of times. I mean, I think about it all the time, and it's hard to kick one out or the other. So it's a giant with thought. I mean, because okay, so I just said, if I was going to create the Earth, I could create it big enough for me to handle. I could build scaffolding and I could form it and I could put, trees. And if I was just making a scale model, I'm not actually making the Earth. Okay. But that's on the macro. Okay. That's on the macro level. In order to make microorganisms that people our size can't even see, okay, and put that on there too, inclusive. Now that's beyond that head of the pin, okay? Because no matter how big I am, in comparison to what I'm making, the micro is infinitely smaller. So, I mean, you know, you got this scale here going, well, the Big Bang is just stupid. Okay. Where did the crap come from that blew up out of this thing and to form itself into a ball in the first place? And then all the other shit happened. Okay. So we've already thrown that concept out because of why? Because of the chaos factor, right? Things in chaos do not choose to collect together to create something, right? When in nature have you ever seen that happen? Have you ever seen a bunch of stuff come together to create on its own to create something? Other than a bunch of water collecting together makes a stream, but you know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So in order for all this to be made out of a Big Bang, that's crazy. Okay, so then now you have this created concept. And I have to come to the conclusion that it was created with thought.
Right. Yeah, I would go with thought. I think it's just too big.
Spoken into existence. The power of sound with the smallest waves, sound, light, whatever particle, you know, what created that?
Yeah.
So I mean, there are tools that could have been used that are in existence today, like dielectric and magnetism and all that at work. You know, we've discovered that is at work. So that is part of what continues to hold it together. Let's just say you shut that off. What happens to us? What happens to our realm without magnetism and electricity or electromagnetic blah blah? What happens? Does it disintegrate?
If we were created by thought, isn't that a simulation?
Well, sure.
Got to be, hasn't it?
Well, yes and no. Now that's another fine line, because if I had the ability to think something into existence, there's still I have to think the raw materials of it into existence and combine them. That's creation. Okay, taking things that don't go together and putting them together and creating something out of it, because you can have no creation without raw materials. It can't happen. Now you can create a song, you know, but you have to, in order for anyone to hear it, you have to play it on something, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so you've gotten to the point where you think it's thought, okay? Then something,
that's pretty God
must still be thinking about it in order for it to maintain itself.
Yeah.
Right? So that must be still controlling it.
So to make all of this that we see, this huge place we live, to make it by thought, doesn't that make Pac-Man sound very insignificant in the scheme of things?
Yes, it very, very much does. Pac-Man.
People laugh at Pac-Man saying, "Oh, it's silly."
Well, how anyone would get so balled up, so worked up over a concept that we're using to describe an action, okay, is beyond me. I mean, you would think you stabbed them in the heart just because they heard the word Pac-Man. They turn into the same mindset as Globers. They get so angry and you know, you're an idiot. The same thing Globers say to them, they're doing to the next person. It's just like trickle down bullying. Okay. And so all I can say is I'm not going to be mad at anyone who comes aboard the theory that there is supernatural something in action here for our world to work. I'm never going to get mad, and I'm never going to say I told you so, and I'm never going to have some haughty attitude of we realized it before you did, blah blah. Doesn't who cares? Okay, we're not the first people to ever think of it, because the originator of Pac-Man thought of it. Okay, not us. We're just using it as a way to describe what we're talking about. It's not actually, the sun is not actually a little Pac-Man going across the Earth screen and coming back in over here. Okay, it's not really Pac-Man. It's a concept that we're talking about. It's a supernatural concept, because in the gamer world, supernatural is part of virtual supernatural is part of the gaming world, right?
Yeah.
I mean, people shooting things out of, it's code. It's just code. Get over it. Okay. So for some of these people to start talking about Pac-Man simply says they understand the concept of Pac-Man as a way of explaining how the sun and moon and stars work across.
Yeah, I mean, and it's like, have you ever come across a flat earther who believes in Big Bang Theory? They don't, do they? They're invariably...
No, because you know what? They're told not to. They're indoctrinated not to. Flat Earth comes with its own dogma. Whether anyone wants to agree with that or not, I don't care. When you become a flat earther, you wouldn't have listened to it in the first place if something somebody said or showed didn't tweak a little thing in your head that said, well, that makes more sense than that, or whatever. So, the minute you become a flat earther, what do? You start watching videos and reading blogs and going into the groups and listening to each other and discussing and talking. You didn't come up with any of it by yourself, or you would have. So the minute, it's just like if you were born in Iran, you're going to be a Muslim. That's where you're going to be raised. Okay. If you're born in Kansas, there's more than likely you're going to be Utah, you're going to be a Mormon or a Buddhist. If you're in, you get me? That's indoctrination. You didn't choose that religious belief on your own. You heard about it from somebody else and you took it in, or you didn't. Okay. So that's how flat Earth has worked to date. And that is, in my opinion, the most breaking news concept people need to get through their head. When you became a flat earther, you got indoctrinated. Okay. Now, many people reject indoctrination on its face. So the minute they started feeling like they were getting indoctrinated, they started to push back, and they started to do their very own research and check the information that people were giving them. So not everyone has done that. Most people went along to get along because A, it was new, B, it was anti-government, anti-authority, anti-all that. C, it was a new group of people who had a common thread with, who all believed the same thing, the same concept anyway, but they don't all believe in the same model. They don't all believe in the same process. So when you can get past that, and if you can get past having a vacuum area, a little vacuumed out area in your head where you hold no belief, you hold no preconceived concept. In other words, the globe, just put a little globe inside your brain in one of the lobes, okay? And then and everything the globe is associated with, take that globe and pull it out of your brain. Now there's a globe amount of space left in there. Okay. It's natural for people to want to fill that void up with something. And if you're given a theory and everybody say, yeah, here it is, and repeat, it's at the end of every video, it's in every, flat earth, everything is that model, then that's going to fill that void. And that's a comfort zone that most people are far more comfortable with than, than having nothing in there. Nothing is very uncomfortable for people. It's like being homeless.
We've got this physical place that's, well, it seems physical to us, that you and I think was created by thought. It's a physical place created by somebody having a thought somewhere else. I mean, what sort of power?
Yeah, I know, that's a paradox, isn't it? Right there. That's a paradox. It's
mind-boggling that anybody, because when you was talking about the microbes, creatures, you've got microbes to blue whales, and then within in the species you've got the blood and components of the blood, and all, it's like everything's. I mean, we are like machines, but if you break it down to the tiny particles that we're made of, we are actually machines.
Mm-hmm.
If we had the technology,
if you break everything down to the cellular level, and actually even what makes up a cell, I mean, a one cell, what do they call those? Amoeba, microbe, whatever. Okay. A one-celled organism, we think it only has one cell. Okay. Because that's as far as we can discern down at this point. What if that one thing is made up of a billion micro cells? Do you see what I'm saying? So
yeah,
we've only gotten down to the micro at this point, I guess.
So
ultra, I don't know what you call it. So, but
can you explain
there is a paradox here, Lawrence, if it's thought, because thought, if you have the ability to create physical with mental, using mental, because thought's mental, it cannot be touched, cannot be felt, measured, okay, thought waves or whatever, okay. But in other words, how do you convert thought to material? Because everything that's here is material.
Yeah. Well,
okay.
Everything started off as a thought.
Unless, of course, it's all virtual. And it's so, if it's virtual, that's even a really huger thing to wrap your mind around.
I mean, because it wouldn't be just one thought, because there's so much detail.
Oh, yeah.
The detail is immense. Everything that we have is immense. Those details would have to be collated together as part of one thought. I can't see it being one thought.
No.
Maybe
no.
Into a computer.
No, it's not. It's not one. It's just, obviously it would have to be a series of thoughts, a conglomeration of thoughts. A building block of thoughts. Okay.
Yeah.
One on top of the other, that it's all connected. So, I went there, you and I both did a cursory visit into the realm of this is all a simulation. Okay. But we didn't spend a lot of time there. And I don't know why, other than, it wasn't the right time, or it didn't capture us enough, or whatever it is. But the problem I think that you might be stuck on is that you are making God physical in your head. Okay. In other words, it's a giant, or it's thought. Okay. I don't think there is any physical to God. Not in the sense that we understand it.
All right. Well, let's look at it a different way. I know we argue about time or discuss time. So at some point there was not the Earth. There was a void or something. It wasn't here. So what, you know, and then a minute later it was all here. Everything was functioning, working.
Well, it's not really a minute later. I mean,
was it done in bits? Did they start? Well, we said, well, let's just put some continents, seas, ocean, and now let's put some fish in the sea, put some animals on the land, and let's have an intelligent species called human beings and stick them in Africa or somewhere. I mean,
but you're putting it all together in some sort of Tinker Toy assembly car, you know, line.
Yeah.
You know, you have to have had, as an artist, as a creator, there's two ways. There's many, but there's you can divide it into two ways to create. Okay, one is you have an outcome in mind, and then you have a process to achieve it. Okay, so you're going to paint a painting of some beautiful pastoral scene on a 32 by 54-inch canvas. So there's a process. You got to go get the canvas. You got to get the stretcher frame. You got to get the paints, the brushes. You have to make some kind of a cursory drawing of the layout of this picture, blah, blah, blah. In other words, that thing doesn't just create itself because you thunk it into reality. All right. Now, the other way to create is sort of a free association, stream of consciousness kind of creation, where you have a bunch of parts and pieces here available to you. And you go, what am I going to make out of all of this? I don't even need to use it all, but I'm going to use that and that and that, and I'm going to make it into something, and I'm going to call it art. Okay. So the process comes, the process comes along as you're working it. Okay. What are you laughing at?
Well, Laurie, well, you know, so when people
which
talk
one is
about
God?
the Big
Which
Bang,
method do you think God used?
when people talk about the Big Bang, everybody says, how did it create something out of nothing? Well, creating something out of thought is creating something out of nothing, isn't it? They're both the same.
Yes.
Yeah?
Yes.
I mean, creating something by thought is as big a step as a Big Bang. There's not much difference in it, really.
Unless you are the closest thing that we could compare that kind of God to would be artificial intelligence, an AI. Okay. And that that is where many of these I can't remember the physicist term, but came up with everything at its most basic level is code, is equivalent or comparable to computer code, right? You've heard this.
Computer code, isn't it, effectively?
Yeah. So if it's all computer code, ones and zeros in some combinations, is that actual physical material creation?
Yeah, because you would have thought, wouldn't you, that they wrote this thing called the Bible. You would have thought that they would have put in the Bible how God did it. You know, did he physically build it, or did he just think it all into existence? Because that is quite a big question, isn't it? How he did it.
Well, first of all, they're writing about something, something that they've never seen. Nobody's ever seen God. And so they're writing about God did this and God did that, okay? Because, according to the Bible, God told him what to say. This is inspired by God. So God put the thought in their head, write this down, see? So think about this. If you are, if you're this entity, just take the word God away from it, okay? You interject the word entity, okay? Is this entity one being form, 5,000 being forms, all combined into one being form, you have no idea what God is to begin with. So you have no idea whether God can physically make material out of thought. You have to assume that if that, it's an if-then, if that whole storyline goes, then it would have to be an if-then scenario. If God is a non-physical being in our sense of the word, and he made a physical thing, where did the physical stuff come from? Did he think it into existence? Does he have they have that capacity? And so if you were going to make the most amazing simulation, for example, look at where we've gotten to in virtual technology today. Okay. You can put this ugly little goofy head thing on your head. Okay. And you can play a simulation with this thing giving you, I think they have gloves that go, it's like the whole thing that will give you the simulation that you're in the 3D thing. You're a part of it. Okay. And you're getting sensory, just like I'm hearing through these. Okay. You're getting sensory projection, eyes, ears. I understand there's smell. They can do smell associated. One of our most heightened senses is smell. So pressure, touch. If all of that is simulated, then if you were born in that, okay, let's just say you were born in a box with all that crap hooked up to you, and you never sensed anything except this virtual sensing that's coming into you. Sight, smell, hearing, blah, blah.
Oh, you mean like Neo?
How would you know the freaking difference until you got out of it and went out into the world and saw that you didn't need any of that stuff? You actually have those senses, and there really is things to smell and see and touch and hear. Okay.
Well, how do we know there is a difference between a simulated reality and a physical?
We don't.
They could be the same, couldn't they? Because if
it's all we were born in this. Okay, this was what we were born. BORNE, born into.
We think it's physical, though, don't we? We think most people think it's a physical reality. This table is real. It's physical.
Lay your arm down on a chopping block and let somebody hit it with an axe, and you're going to think that's pretty freaking real. Okay, because your hand is going to be separated from your arm in reality. Okay, and blood is going to come gushing out of your body, and your blood pressure is going to drop, and if no attention is paid to this, you're going to bleed out and you're going to die, and that's going to be reality. Okay?
Yeah, but that would happen in a simulation as well, wouldn't it? If we were in a simulation.
Of course.
Yeah, same thing. Yeah.
And maybe let's just go here, just because now we can, right? Nobody's stopping us. Let's say that there in Eden, at the beginning of creation, there was no pain. Okay, those senses didn't get turned on. Okay, there's no pain. There's no cutting or bleeding or disease or dying or hunger or any of these, things that annoy us as humans every day. Okay. And the animals and the humans and the birds and everybody just lived in harmony, and nobody ate each other. Okay. And so on. And when man fell, according to biblical teaching, then that's when all these pain things started to happen. and all this other stuff. Okay. So,
all right, Jim.
So in a virtual creation, you can turn off and on. You would be able to turn off and on pain, and any negative stimulation. Some people can't see. Some people can't hear. Some people can't smell.
Yeah.
You get what I'm saying?
Yeah. Do you know, I'm thinking that the human species has been tampered with historically. And the reason that is because I research alternative health. So when you talk about cancer and you've got a tumor, there's a protein coating on the outside of it, which stops the body's own immune system recognizing it as a cancer. When you use black salve, it strips away the outer coating and induces an immune response, and then you'll get swelling, inflammation, pus, and then the immune system attacks this tumor, kills it, and the body pushes it out. But without the help of this third-party balm, you know, herbal balm, to actually break this coating down, the body
has no way of recognizing the cancer.
But the body's own immune system is able to kill what's there.
Right.
But part of it has to be removed first for it to get at it. And it's as though that our DNA has been tampered with so that our healing processes do not function properly.
All right. So what is RNA and DNA?
Ribonucleic acid. Well,
but what is it at its base?
It's probably computer code.
It's code. It's our own individual code. Now, whether you want to call it computer code or not, but we all have our own individual code, even twins. Okay. They're just slightly different. And so based on, I mean, how many times have you heard things like, well, you know, the pig is only a few codes different than the human, or I don't know, some kind of worm I heard one time or something that's not that far off code-wise, DNA code-wise, from a human. So if all you had to do was have 1 0 1 0 1 0 1 0 and then 1 1 and then 1 0 1 0, okay, all you got to do is flip one of those ones to a 0 and you got a different code. You got a different thing, right? And that creates glitches. People deal with that kind of stuff in working with computers all day long, building websites, for example, and you have all of these different add-ons or extensions or whatever that you add to it to give more flexibility to your website. And this code and this code, these two individual people created these two extensions or add-ons or something, and this one's they don't work together. This one corrupts that one, okay? And now your website doesn't work anymore. And all it is code, period. So
it's like when you look at
illness, in my opinion, is turning a 1 to a 0 when it's not supposed to work that way, and you're susceptible then to illness. So is that what happened when man fell? Some code got changed because so-and-so ate from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, or you know what I'm saying? So corruption of code is pretty detrimental in virtual anything.
Yeah, so that is the big question then. Who is the creator? Where does he live? And
well, at that point, Lawrence, don't you feel pretty freaking humbled? Like you feel like a slug in comparison to, you know, a giraffe. You know, if I look at a giraffe, I just think, wow, what an amazing contraption this thing is, you know? I mean, is it a cool thing to have a long neck or a bad thing? You know, there's like upside and a downside to the shape of a giraffe. And would I rather be a giraffe? I don't even know what they're thinking. You know, I don't even know what they know. I don't know anything about how they communicate or what they think about their babies or any of those things, and not, or any other species. But in comparison to me and my species, I see, you know, benefits and negatives to other species. Not that I'd rather be one of those, but you understand my thinking. So
Yeah.
the creator thought about all that. Okay, let's make a zebra. Why do I want to make it black and white striped? Is that gonna, what is the benefit? What is the benefit? Or they're all in a pack together. I'm going to make them herd animals, group herd animals. So when they're all together, what would be a really good way to differentiate one from the other? Let's make them all stripes. And then the stripes will make them all look the same. And then we won't be able to tell one from another. You know, you have no idea what the thinking was. Well, why you make that one striped and this one brown? And you know what I'm saying?
So what about the creator then, Laurie? Why did the creator create?
I'm very humbled by the creator because, in my opinion, we're all made in the image of God. They say, the Bible says we're made in the image of God. Well, in my opinion, the image of God is the creator. We're all made creative.
So
that's the image that I personally think that's what that means, that we're all made creative and that we all have free will.
Why do you think he made us?
Why do you think he made us?
Why was this the creation anyway? What was the point?
Why do we make children? We know it's going to be a hell of a lot of freaking work, and that they're, you know, yeah, we're going to get some laughs out of it and we're going to have some joy in seeing this little amazing thing.
I mean, how do we know that our whole existence is not a game where
we have no idea why?
You know, souls are on the outside, yeah, and people choose and say, well, I fancy doing this and I'm going to go and have a life. I'm going to be this woman called Laurie Fleury and live in Florida, and I'm going to be an artist and develop property and see what that, and just experience what that's like. And everybody who comes down here chooses to do what they do. Now, maybe we've all been down the road, we've been a millionaire and had fast planes, and maybe you just want to experience life as a, you know, was a humble peasant in the Indian plains or something. But what I don't get is why somebody be born, you know, terribly handicapped or something like that.
Well, there you go. I mean, I have terribly handicapped friends, and, you know, in their mind, they're thinking, why me? You know, why I look around, I see all these people who can walk and talk and move and dance and do all these things, and I can't do any of that. Well, walk and talk, I mean, talk maybe, but you know what I'm saying? So what was I thinking when I chose this body to come into? Or is that even, is that even part of the deal? You know, we've been told we chose to come here. All right. So what if we just chose to come here and we just, as spirits, came coming down a big funnel line, and as we got to here, the creator planted us into a body. Okay.
Yeah, it's possible.
So if you're going to be the creator, aren't you going to create your own dolls, play pieces to play with? You know, if you're going to do all that, what else could you have done with your time and your energy?
That's a game, and we're the players in their game, aren't we?
Well,
you said it.
All I can say is perhaps or maybe. I can't answer what the motivation was to create the freaking game in the first place, or the plane, or the planet, or any of it, or the microbes or the slugs. I have no idea why the process was begun, other than this creator got the name the creator because he, she, it, they is creative. And as a creative person, I understand the joy of creation. Trust me. People that are artists are motivated to create something. Whether, and I'm not just talking about a virtual artist. I mean, a visual artist. I'm talking about a cook, chef, you know, a musician, anything that's creative. Your talent is used to make something out of it. And that's the image of God, I believe, that we were created in. And so we're moved to create. And all of us have a different, you know, inside motivation, meaning we naturally are going to enjoy the things we're good at, and we're naturally going to be good at the things we enjoy, right? If you are naturally good at cooking, okay, taking a bunch of ingredients that are sitting here on this counter and making something wondrous out of it. You know, if you didn't enjoy it, you wouldn't spend hours making gravy like the Italians do, for example. You would just slap something together and kill your hunger and then go do something else, which is pretty much what I do. Even though I can't cook. Even though I can't cook. I am a creative cook, but I don't, it's not a passion of mine. There's other things I would prefer to do with my time, so that's what I do. Anyway.
If you've got the time.
All right. So do you have any other any other news that, like you said earlier, Mr. Thrive and Survive is come into the supernatural model concept of a flat Earth, and moved away from the circle model. And my news is I'm noticing more and more that people are becoming aware finally that that model and that map of the circle concepts is unworkable, does not reflect reality. And more people are coming aboard. There's a lot less ridicule and mocking of people like us who have asked others to just look at other ideas that we've come up with. But at the end of the day, Lawrence, what part of that really matters? You know, I just got I did that hangout with Ainer. I can't say his name like he did. The creator of Finding the Curve. Look for that on our videos. And we talked about the same thing. What are we even doing this for? Because everyone that you ask will say, what difference does it make what we live on? You know, I still got to go to work. I still got to raise my kids, and I still got to change the oil in my car. So what? Who cares?
I think the end game is that the people want to break the power structure and find out who's in control, and they want to know why we're here, you know, and where we came from, and who made us. This is what we really want to know. You know,
well, but did you wonder any of those things, or did you care about any of those things before you found out that the Earth might be flat?
Yeah, absolutely.
If the answer is yes, then flat Earth is just one more of the truths. It's a pretty big one, and one that if it were exposed to the world at large, then it would alter the course of history and alter the course of the future. So that's enough motivation for me to pursue what is the lie, how much is lied about, and why are they continuing it? There's somebody out there, more than one, that knows that this is a lie at the upper top level of the pyramid, and they're continuing to perpetuate it. Now, you know, other people say, well, the flat Earth is just a precursor to the alien, you know, disclosure project that's going to happen next. Well, that doesn't make any sense, because why would you tell people suddenly start to leak out that the Earth is flat only to have flying saucers coming in, you know, to view a year from now? And so there's only so much that can be controlled, because people are creative. People are thinking all the time. There's only so much that you can control of the future based on how you've controlled people in the past. And there's always a chaos theory at play, always, where you cannot tell what humans are thinking totally, or predict their behavior. Not totally. They're getting pretty good at it. There's no doubt about it. They can not only know what you're buying, but they can pretty much make you buy what they want you to buy. So that's pretty controlling.
Laurie, there's one or two people in this community as such who think that we're living on a stationary ball, one that's not spinning, where all the celestial bodies go around us. You know that movie called The Principle? Do you remember that?
Mm-hmm.
They were talking about a geocentric Earth, weren't they? Which is a round Earth that doesn't spin, and everything goes round us. But I found a big problem with that. You didn't comment on it. I think you probably glaze over when I talk numbers, but let me just run this past the audience, because nobody's debunked this. So what we've got, the geocentric model is the one with the stationary Earth with the celestial bodies circling us. Here is why the geocentric ball Earth model cannot be true. So first, let's look at a few mainstream science numbers. The speed of light is said to be 186,282 miles a second. A trillion as a number is 1 followed by 12 noughts, which is a million. And the closest star to us, other than our sun, is said to be Proxima Centauri, 4.2 light years away. So 1 light year expressed as a number is said to be 5.9 trillion miles. So the nearest star is Proxima Centauri at 24.78 trillion miles away. So you've got a few numbers there. So let's work out how far Proxima Centauri would need to travel in 1 day, because in their theory, it goes around the Earth, all the stars go around once a day, to circle a stationary ball Earth. The distance away from the Earth, that would equate to the radius, you know, a straight line from us in the center to Proxima Centauri going outwards. That would be the radius. So you multiply that times 2 pi. So it's 24.78 trillion times pi, which is 3.14159. That gives this orbit the distance this star travels in 1 day, in 24 hours, of 77.84 trillion miles in 1 day. When you convert this to the speed of light terms, the nearest star would need to travel at 4,837 times the speed of light. That's the nearest star. And some of the other ones are farther away, according to mainstream. But that just totally throws the, you know, the geocentric model onto the scrap heap, doesn't it? For that to work, the stars and the sun would have to be much closer.
Okay, so to be sure, the definition of the geocentric model is a globe with the sun, moon, and stars circling around it. It's not a flat plane.
Yeah, but they go all the way around us in a day.
Right, so that's exactly right. Well, I'm just clearing that up for people who, you know, maybe listening and maybe thinking, is he talking about the heliocentric model? No, he is talking about the geocentric.
If something is light years away and it does a full circle, a full orbit around the Earth every day, then it's traveling light years a day, which you can't do. You can't travel light years in a day.
Right.
That's what they'd have to do.
Well, it's another one of those things for people to ponder and shows the impossibility.
You know, Star Trek, when they talk about warp speed, well, warp 10 would be 10 times the speed of light. That planet would have to travel at 4,830, warp 4,837 for the nearest planet to go around us once in a day. So there's some food for thought for you.
That definitely is. All right, Lawrence, let's, we've done a couple hours. Let's wrap it. And
oh, yeah, the quinoa is still fresh, and the other one is getting stinkier.
Oh my, quinoa is still fresh after, we're close to a year, aren't we?
It's a year now, yeah. Whole year.
It's a year. Wow, amazing. For those who don't know what we're talking about, Lawrence put 2 jars of quinoa together. One that he had put love words on the jar, and one that he put hate words on the jar. And then he didn't even speak to them. He's just doing an experiment to see if words make any difference. Hold on, Lawrence.
Thank you. You can see on that, it's all clean inside here. Can you see the grain all clean?
Yeah, hold it still. There you go.
It's all green. Now this one, I'll take the lid off.
No, don't. I don't want you gagging.
Right, look in the side. You can still, it's all, the grain's all clean. It's a tricolour quinoa, still all clean. And then the other one, I have to hold my breath because it's such a stench. The other one, it's brown sludge, hatred. You make me sick, I will kill you. And then inside, there you go.
Oh, look at that. Oh, that's nasty.
I'm going to keep it for another year.
And that's just based on words.
Yeah, yeah, there you go.
Cool beans. Thanks for that update, Lawrence. And
1 year on. I think McDonald's must be doing something similar with their food because their hamburgers don't rot, do they?
That's funny.
They've got the experiment with them.
Right.
Nothing rots.
Okay. All right. Glad to catch up. I know it's been a while. It's probably been a month or so. And so glad to see everything's going well and good. And we'll try to get together again very soon compared to the last little break that we did. So
we need more research into this conspiracy to books that never existed.
Greenland. Okay, Greenland. Greenland is the new focus.
Yeah, put the link to it. Put the link to that site on the WhatsApp.
Okay, you'll have to send me the link. You'll have to send me the link.
And
I'll put it on the WhatsApp, otherwise known as the description box. So
yeah, I'll stick it
on.
on.
Cheerio.
Yeah.